In today's video, we're going to build a stand for a laser engraver. Not just a stand, a whole enclosure, a whole system. Let's do it. So, a couple of months back, I got this laser engraver. It's a 24-watt unit with air assist. It came partly assembled and you had to connect some of the different parts together. And after a little playing around with it and learning the software, it was ready to go. It took me a little while to figure out how to get crisp lines, how to cut all the way through. But once I got that, it suddenly opened up a lot of doors for adding logos and writing, as well as cutting through different materials. What's so interesting about the laser engravers, of course, you can, get so much more detail. I mean, just look at this guy here. I can do a font. Initially, we just had it on a temporary table, and the first thing to deal with was the smoke. Smokiness, certainly something to consider if you want to get something like this. It's nice to have a workspace because this is quite smoky and I've got fans going. I went over this in more detail in my latest shop update videos, so if there's anything that I'm not going over here, you might want to check out those videos. Initially, I was thinking about getting one of these inline blowers and set something up, but then I realized I had an extra dust collector that I wasn't using. So I was thinking that is much better because that is stronger. I mean, that's more powerful. And one thing I was thinking is filtering the smoke through like an air filter, like for the dust collection. But the thing is, try that, and there's so many fine particles in the smoke. So even if you filter it through, it's still not that great. So I was thinking the best thing is just to throw that air outside. That way you just get it out of here, and there's no point in messing around with filtering it and like keeping it in-house. So now we have the dust collection set up here with a vent, and it just kind of filters out or throws it out. And we have these hoses and a rather DIY solution here, which actually works quite great. Let me show you. The first version of Operation Smoke Collection consisted of creating a tent out of plastic connected to a dust collector hose and motor, and we funneled the smoke outside. We basically draped this plastic tent over the machine, and this dust collection setup worked really great. The tent was a big improvement to having nothing. Suddenly you can actually use this machine without opening up all the doors in the workshop. It was, however, just a temporary setup. Next up, we worked on the Lexan enclosure. So what do we have here? Well, first, we need to cut up some plywood and some wood, as well as Lexan. And it's just a box that fits perfectly around the laser engraver. So the plywood here is blocking the laser in some areas. You can sit in the office behind here while it's going. And in other areas, it provides like a clear view to see what's going on, inside the laser if you're wearing glasses. And then on top, we had a hole drilled with a hose fitting, and the hose could just connect on and off. And so this was connected to the same dust collection system. And we basically had these hoses going up through hooks in the ceiling, and then it was just funneled out. So all the smoke was going outside. And wow, this enclosure here worked even better than the tent. I mean, it is sleek. The tent looked a little bit messy. I actually had to leave some gaps in the unit, because if you capped it completely, there was too much pressure going on, and you could like see the walls of the Lexan kind of getting sucked in. So the motor and the dust collection system here is too powerful to not have any extra gaps coming. But basically, you can just imagine when there's smoke coming through, it just does a very nice job of just funneling that outside. Now, with this enclosure part taken care of, what I really wanted was some sort of stand, like a very custom stand for this laser engraver that took up just the right amount of space, and also something that had wheels. I'm going to go into this more later, but I want to be able to take this outside at times as well. So let's go to Aspire by Vectric, and we can design a stand. I'm going to use 3/4 inch plywood, and basically the stand is going to have a top, bottom, and 2 sides. It will also have a drawer and some brackets. In terms of joinery, we're making kind of like chunky box joints so that everything will connect together. And this is really my favorite way of connecting plywood together, if you have that option. Because it's so nice to not have to use any screws, any nails, any metal fasteners, and it provide such a good connection point, along with glue. Now this footage here of the CNC cutting out the pieces is sped up with 1000%, so it's a little slower in real life. But basically it's going over the cuts a couple of times, and I never get tired of how cool this is. Just the fact that you can throw a sheet of plywood on the bed and have it cut out something that you designed, I mean, it's quite wild. It goes from your head to finished pieces like this. If you're interested in these files for the CNC, we'll have them on our website, and I'll put a link in the description below. Now, I settled on this design here because I wanted a drawer underneath, so you could store things that would come in handy, and you could also put in like pieces that you cut if it's small things. Things would have a place. However, originally we were planning a different design with a downdraft table so that you wouldn't need the enclosure, and the dust collection hose would be connected from underneath. There would be lots of holes on this board here, and there would be like a downdraft coming from underneath. However, in the end, it seemed like a better idea to go with a basic stand, having the suction come from above instead, having that drawer. So we scrapped that idea and went with this instead. Okay, so all the pieces are cut now for the laser engraving table. So this is 3/4 inch plywood. That's what all the pieces are designed for. I didn't use 1/2 inch plywood. It was a little more expensive to buy 1/2 inch plywood, so I went with 3/4 inch plywood instead. So you can see, so basically you have all the pieces except from the bottom cut up here, cut from one sheet here. So we have the sides here, and this is just offcuts because they don't need to be there, the sides here. We have the top, and there are holes here, basically for the laser engraver to connect to, so we know exactly where that's gonna go. Over here, brackets. Okay, so this is instead of cutting out a back, so you don't have to waste all that plywood for a back. These are brackets for kind of the bottom and the top for everything to keep it nice and square. And then we have pieces cut out for one drawer here. Basically it's like box joints, but they are inset a little bit. They will fit together perfectly like that, and they're inset like that to account for drawer slides. So time to take all these pieces off and then cut the piece for the bottom, and we're ready to assemble. In terms of assembling, it's all pretty straightforward, glue and a little pressure. These joints were pretty tight and needed a bit of help in order to get together properly. Now, I always think glue-ups are pretty stressful, even if it's a straightforward, simple build like this one. I mean, you want to make sure you get all the glue on and all the pieces together as quickly as possible at the same time before the glue has a chance to set, especially when you're not using any other metal hardware. As always, getting it square is the main thing. And since we don't have a back here, the square, the brackets, are perfect for ensuring that we're getting a good lineup. And if it's a little out of square, then using a clamp at a diagonal here is perfect for getting everything straightened out. Casters for this build here was essential. These are heavy-duty casters and they go on pretty easily, simply with a bolt going through the hole and a washer and nut on the other side to cap it. For the drawer here, we're using some heavy-duty drawer slides. And if there was ever a good time to use drawer slides, this must be it. When you want to be able to open the drawer effortlessly and you might want to store heavy things inside it. So here we got the case off, and the cord is going to the computer. The whole point with having this attached to a table here is that you never have to question where things are. You always know that everything is in the right position in relation to the software, so it's just ready to start cutting. And now, of course, there's drawers. You can put everything in, nothing will get lost. Little brackets and screws. So one of these offcuts was used for this shelf, so it has that, you know, beautiful kind of smooth round angle. The other offcut was used for making more brackets. So I really like it when you can use up all the material that you cut out. And of course this is cut out of here because it's not necessary, and then you might as well use it for something else. So this right here is the boundary of the laser, as you can see, and that's where this one, is sitting. And this, of course, is to prevent burning, cutting through. And just clean this with isopropyl alcohol, which took off all the gunk just beautifully, because this was really dirty. Like with all the, when you cut the wood, it has this kind of, it creates this resin or something. So we can have this down first, and then the honeycomb on top of that. So this is working out really good now, being able to cut, if you have a bunch to cut it outside. The enclosure, of course, works really great, but when you're just cutting like a lot of it, you might as well do it outside and make sure that there's no smoke and just vent it all outside. Let's take a look here. It was just cutting. In general though, I just love the way this whole thing looks. Like the curves, the cutouts, the brackets. Now with some more wood on here, it's a little bit more heavy. There's more mass onto it, which is nice, just to kind of make it a bit more stable when you move it around. But when this is screwed down and this is screwed down, everything is very stable and nothing is moving, which is nice. So this was cut number 4 out here. Now we're gonna do a couple more ladybugs. The one thing that I also really love about this is just to have a drawer here where you can put, everything that you cut. So that there's nothing, falls here. For example, we also have these little tiny parts in here that easily get lost. So you cut, put the pieces in here, it's all protected. So we have a couple more of these holders here. So you know where they are. Here are all the pieces that have been cut out. Here we have more blanks ready to go. Of course, screwdrivers, all. Then of course, this is the outdoor version. When we could take it inside, we have the enclosure. Because not every day is like this, and unless we're cutting a lot, we wouldn't bring it out here. This is if you want to cut a whole bunch, and you might as well go outside. If you're doing 1 or 2 cuts, you could just do it inside. So this of course is possible because of casters, right? One of the things we're using the laser engraver for right now is cutting out different keepsake boxes out of 1/8" Baltic birch plywood. These will house different things that are going in our shop for things we're selling. This one is designed to hold one of our spinning tops and the little dish that goes with it. So it's made to fit it just perfectly. And before we got the laser engraver, it was these kinds of cuts that I was excited about being able to do. These super crisp lines where you can cut out small parts. Before this, I used the CNC machine for these kinds of things, but you can't really cut out tiny things on the CNC very easily anyway. Things have to be secured down in a different way. These two machines are great, but in different ways. Now the laser engraver is perfect for cutting out small parts, very fine joinery, and of course adding text and information on as well. And that can be tiny also, whereas it's hard to carve out tiny text on the CNC machine. Nice, this is all ready. Now in terms of software, I'm using Lightburn to control the machine and all of that. However, for a lot of the design work, I'm actually using Aspire by Vectric, which I normally would use for my CNC work. I just find that software a little bit easier to use for a lot of the design work, but then I import it into Lightburn because I can easily, hone the machine and control things like that. Now, favorite part, I think, is the shelf right here, and the fact that this is that off-cut. Another thing we've found to be quite useful in terms of workflow is to carve out placeholders for different things. For example, we're making these wax pots for wax polish in wood, and I want to engrave the lids. Now, I can engrave a piece of plywood with the location for a couple of lids, and then I can place the lids in those places, and I'll know in the software where those pieces are. So in other words, I can engrave several pieces faster. It's a little more efficient, and since the wood doesn't move when it's being engraved, not like when you're using a CNC machine and you need to secure the wood down before carving out something with a bit. Here you can just place the pieces in those carved out positions and then run the program, so it is a lot faster and easier. So here are our lids for the wax pots, and now we have positions for each one. And of course, when you're standing out right here looking at laser, glasses, which makes everything green. So now ready to bring it back inside? So this was out cutting in the sun when we're getting these error messages, this flame message. So I don't know if it was just getting too hot being out in the sun, so brought it back in here, now let it cool down. And let me show how we put the unit back on again. So we have wires coming through here, right? Now we have a hole in there, so the first step is to bring the case up and put it right above. It fits just perfectly around here, so. Okay, so right here we have a hole. So first step is opening this up. This is an air assist system, so this is the air hose that connects to that. This basically blows out the debris, so when the laser engraver is cutting, it doesn't have anything interfering. So now we have wires going the other direction, so going in here. So this is USB. This is the data cable that connects to the computer, so that it knows what to cut. There. And finally we have the HDMI here that kind of connects to itself. So we also have a piece right here. This is connected to a bracket, and this is just to hold this up while you're working with it. Otherwise, we're tipping it all the way up, but this is a lot easier when you're outside or you don't have a wall behind. So it's just a little support and it goes right down like. Okay, so got the unit in here now. Let's do a test inside here. Now the thing, if you're cutting through something, of course there's more smoke produced. So that's what we're doing outside now. Let's do some engraving now, and let's just connect the hose and run everything through and see if everything is okay. Computer's connected to power. Okay, so we have beautiful engraving. So that engraving was really quick, and it doesn't smell like any smoke in here at all. Now when you're cutting something, for 15 minutes, cutting all the way through, it's a different story. It still doesn't smell that smoky in here, but it's more pronounced than if you're just doing a quick engraving. So, all in all, this whole setup has made the engraver a lot more useful. Now it's a tool that we're actually using for a bunch of things in the shop. I hope this video was useful. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I want to say a big thanks to our patrons. And if you're interested in the files for the CNC, I'll put a link in the description below. And as always, all plans are free for patrons $5 and up. Other than that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.